So, I am here today to talk about the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke. And I did state before a while ago that this video was going to go down. And it's going down right now because I felt like doing it today. I go where the wind takes me, alright? Though granted, I am a fat ass, so the wind can only take me so far. A few millimeters at best, if even, ladies and gentlemen. So the thing here is that when it comes to this fight, I want to pretty much give my thoughts in a nice, neat package all in one video. Because when these chapters came out, I stated that I was going to be lenient. I was going to hold back my complaints and my grievances with this fight because these were the final chapters of Naruto. But now I am untethered. I am free. I can spread my wings and fly and soar like a giant black falcon. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to also compare this fight, the final battle, with the original, or I should say the first battle in the Battle of the End, part 1. And I'm also going to talk about a few things that, because listen, this is my opinion. You have your own opinion, I have my opinion. And I'm going to state the reason why I have my opinion. That's just the way it rolls. So, mainly two things to wrap it all up. Number one, is this fight as good as the first battle? And number two, does this fight meet expectations? And I'm only going to compare the manga version of the first fight with the manga version of this fight, because, or the main battle, because there hasn't been an anime for the final fight between Naruto and Sasuke yet. We can assume that they're going to add a few things here or there to the anime version of the final fight, like they did in the original previous fight between Sasuke and Naruto in the Battle of the End. So let me start by saying this when it comes to the comparison. The overall length of the chapters is, I think, a big role, because the longer, or I should say the more chapters you have for a particular fight, the more stuff you can do, therefore you increase the pacing, therefore you make the experience more enjoyable. And, at least in my personal opinion, sometimes it could backfire, but then it depends on how good the mangaka is. In Kishimoto's case, I think he's better off actually doing like more chapters per fight. That's my personal opinion. Now, you only have 4 chapters for this fight against Naruto and Sasuke, the final one. 4 chapters. Naruto and Sasuke part 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the part 1 of Naruto, that battle went on for about 7 or 8 chapters. Almost double, if not double. That to me is a big deal, because this final battle should have been 10 chapters. I'm not even joking when I say that. And I do understand that Kishimoto wanted to end on chapter 700. A nice, even number, 700. Boom. If you would end on like 702, not as appealing. Whatever. But still, this fight should have been 10 solid chapters at least. At least. The next thing is, when it comes to this fight, it kind of spikes dramatically in the overall scale. Like, you have Sasuke start off with one fire style jutsu. Naruto blocks with a chakra hand, and all of a sudden he jumps right into Susanoo. And the scale of the fight jumps dramatically. Where in the original fight, not the case. It was slower progression. To be honest, when it comes to the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke, the part that I actually like the most is the ending part, where they're going straight fist to cuffs. Where Sasuke does utilize kunai or shuriken like once. Okay, fine. But number 3, there should have been a lot more kunai and shuriken play in this fight. Where in the original fight, there was a little bit more. Not that much more, but a little bit more at the beginning. And in this case, it's at the end. So, this fight, like these 2 fights put together, it's almost like a bell curve. Where the first battle starts off fairly slow, and then it kind of ends off on a really high point with that giant explosion, and then everything's over. But in the second battle, it starts off very fast, and then it slowly goes down as they go to the fisticuffs, and then they have their final clash with the Chiyori Rasengan. So, in a sense, the scaling of the fight increased in the original version, whereas the scaling increased then slowly decreased after a period of time for the second fight. But everything is done in only 4 chapters. Therefore, in a certain sense, the fight does seem very rushed. The original fight does not seem rushed at all. Furthermore, when it comes to my own biases, I gotta say, man, there's something appealing about seeing, if you would, the evil or the Kyuubi that is engulfed with hatred. There's something a lot more satisfying when you have Sasuke take that Chidori and he ruptures or he punches a hole through one of Naruto's lungs and shoulders. And then you have Naruto grab his hand, Sasuke jumps back, all of a sudden he sees this giant image of the Nine-Tailed Fox, just glowing eyes, evil as shit. That shit is awesome. Okay? Brothers of Darkness. This shit is cool. And when you have this fight, the final fight between Naruto and Sasuke, my taste for the Nine-Tailed Fox had dramatically declined. I was not a fan of this guy any longer. I mean, yeah, like, it was inevitable, but still, no. It wasn't to my liking. And I guess that ties into the whole build-up. The build-up of the fight that took place in part 1, I think was a lot better than the build-up of the fight that took place in part 2. And that mainly ties in to both parts of Naruto. As a whole, I can sit here and argue all day, but simply put, part 1 of Naruto is better than part 2. Therefore, the build-up for this fight between Naruto and Sasuke in part 1 is substantially better than the build-up for the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke in part 2. And again, that's my own bias. I'm openly admitting that. That is my own bias. There are some folks who actually earnestly, honestly believe that part 2 of Naruto is better than part 1. Blows my fucking mind away. But for those folks, the build-up is probably better for the second half of, or I should say for the second battle, the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke, as opposed to the first one. Okay, fine. I'm just telling you the way I see it. That simple. Something else I do want to mention is the geography. Because, to me, it does play not a substantial role, but it is something that should be noted. The geography of the first battle was simple, it was straightforward, and everything took place within the valley. There was nothing confusing or there was nothing odd about it. However, in the second battle, it does seem to start that way initially, but then things get a little bit confusing. So you have the Valley End start, obviously, on top of the statues. And then they start to fight, for the most part, behind the statue of Madara and Hashirama, in the lake behind Madara and Hashirama. And then, once they start fighting in the top area of the troposphere, the battle starts to venture off into, like, the other countries. But you don't notice it. So let me remind you something. The Valley of the End is located in the border between the Land of Sound and the Land of Fire. But you could still see the trunk of the Shinju a ways away. The way the geography was, it made it look as if, like, the lake behind the Valley of the End was really close to the trunk of the Shinju, which was kind of odd because the trunk of the Shinju is located in the Frost Country. And before the Frost Country, there is the country of hot water. So I understand that the trunk is still large in of itself, like it's still very tall. In fact, I recall that the trunk took up a substantial part of the shore, the southeastern shore of the Frost Country. But yet, When Sasuke, before he goes into giant Thunder Indra mode, the floating Chibaku Tensei, where the Nine-Tailed Beasts are, was located in the Frost Country. So, what you're not aware of, and it's very odd, is that Sasuke and Naruto, when they were fighting across what appears to be 4 or 3 different countries in the troposphere area. Where, to the point where Sasuke can get close enough to pretty much drag over all 9 of those Chibaku Tensei and siphon off chakra from them. And it's not that apparent at all because the scenery is very much the same. Just mountains and mountain and mountain and mountain and mountain. Wherever you look, a lake here and the trunk over there, but that's it. So when they use that giant explosion, when you have Indra's arrow collide with the Chibaku Tensei and the Biju Dama, that particular blast encompassed what appears to be the top portion of the country of hot water, some of the Frost Country, some of the southern portion of the sound of the land of sound, and then some of the top portion of the land of fire. It's weird. It is very weird. That's what I think was something that threw me off a lot, was being able to see the trunk of the Shinja, even though they were like, unless the countries are that small, they were 2 to 3 countries away from the Frost Country. So that was a little bit strange, and it made things iffy for me, because I did notice that. And finally, the last thing I'll talk about here is the overall structure of the fights. The structure of the fight in the first one was actually better and made more sense than the second one. And this should wrap up the video. You have the power-ups that took place in the first fight, which actually made a little more sense than the one in the second one. For example, Naruto, when he powers up, he's getting a portion of the Nine-Tailed Fox's chakra, a fraction of it. And he had already utilized it before, because Jiraiya, he helped him with that. And even though he was using the cloak for the first time, Naruto wasn't in full control of the cloak. And we see that in the fight. We see where Naruto is attacking Sasuke, and then the cloak, moves on its own to attack Sasuke. So the Nine-Tailed Fox has some control there too. Furthermore, when it comes to Sasuke's power-up in that battle, Sasuke, we're going from 2 Tomo to 3 Tomo. Well, again, because the Uchiha are a very emotional clan, and here Sasuke was in the midst of killing his best friend at that point in time, well, and to this day, still best friends, obviously it was going to have an emotional effect. And it was pretty obvious when he also put the headband on too. Furthermore, when it comes to him using the Cursed Seal Mark, the level 2, we've already seen other individuals utilize that previously. And Sasuke hadn't mastered it, but he was using it just for power increase, so he could use Chidori for the 3rd time. Where before he had a limit on his Chidori to 2 a day, or some shit like that. So it does make sense, the way things panned out. However, in the final battle of Naruto and Sasuke, there's some shit that's pretty funky. First of all, the fact that Naruto could not only float in his giant QB mode, which threw me the fuck off, because initially he was struggling floating in his regular Awakened Ashura mode when he first got the powers from the Sage. And all of a sudden now he can float just fine. But he was able to perform Kage Bunshins of his Nine-Tailed Giant Chakra mode. What? See, that threw me off. Big time. And then the Nine-Tailed, and then the clones merge the chakra to make an Ashura QB. See, that's where shit just kind of, with Sasuke, he always had his Susanoo. And he siphoned off chakra from the tailed beasts that are floating behind him once he moved them behind him. And I guess when it comes to Sasuke, what does kind of confuse me a little bit is how he's able to siphon off so much chakra and contain it all when not only was he tired, or he should have been tired from using his Rinnegan for the past, day or so, fighting against Kaguya and Madara, Kaguya and Madara, but also the fact that it's a brand new Rinnegan, so he still hadn't known the ins and outs of it. So in that sense, it's pretty funky. But not as big as a deal, nowhere near as big as a deal as Naruto's issues in that battle. Not only that, but another issue of note when it came to Naruto is the fact that there was a Nine-Tailed Fox clone that was knocked down to the ground by Sasuke. That clone, in a few seconds' time, is able to gather up so much natural energy to where Naruto's able to create those two giant Rasen Shurikens. And I'm sitting here but like, wait, hold on, pause. Nine-Tailed Fox. What? I mean, again, it was a question I had back then, and I still have it now. Does the Yin QB absorb more natural energy faster than the Yang QB? Because he did so in a few seconds, where the Yang QB took like at least a few minutes to gather that kind of level of chakra. So Naruto can go back into Bijou mode. And he even says there, I gather way too much chakra. I'm like, bro, it's been like 2-3 seconds. Sasuke just blocked a few punches and was, firing his Ender's arrow when you gave too much chakra to Naruto. Bruh. And then there was also another repeat of a particular scene that I saw where the fight starts off in like Naruto and Sasuke Part 2. There's one scene where you have Sasuke, he does 3 Susanoo arrows and Naruto blocks with 3 Gurodama. And then they pretty much rehash that same scene on a bigger scale where Sasuke's in that giant Thunder Indra mode and he fires off 3 giant lightning needles, and then Naruto counters with 3 Bijudama. So, that being said, I'm done. I think I covered all my bases, or bases, whatever. So, to wrap this video up, number 1, is the second battle, the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke, as good or better than the first battle? And my answer is a straightforward no. I've pretty much laid out my reasons as to why that is. Number 2, does this battle meet my expectations? And that one I'm kind of mixed on. Because initially, I did have high expectations for this battle. I really did. I really did, because Part 2 of Naruto is longer than Part 1. And you knew that Sasuke and Naruto were going to have their final fight. It was going down. And because the length was longer, the anticipation was greater. And knowing that you only had half of the chapters in overall length compared to the first one, it's not satisfying. Not even close. However, when you compare the quality of the story from Part 1 to Part 2, again, in my mind, the quality diminished over the course of time. So, in that sense, because the quality diminished, why wouldn't I expect the same thing from the final battle? So, even though it is kind of a cop-out, to a certain degree, the fight does not meet my expectations. But at the same time, it does. Because, honestly, my expectations for the fight, even though they were high, they were also low. Again, it's a cop-out, and I apologize. It's not as straightforward as the first answer, but that's just how I feel. So, that is what it is, I guess. So, that being said, those are my thoughts on the final fight between Naruto and Sasuke. And I will leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll probably talk about it again if I do a overview of the entirety of Naruto, the series. Yeah, I probably will, yeah. And I'll leave it at that. But I'll probably do that when the anime is over. Yeah. So, King Lightning, I will see you guys later. Rate the video, comment, subscribe. Have a nice one.